My name is Ben. I'm your host,
And I'm Michael, your co-host.
and we are going to take you through the discography of Linkin Park. We go track by track, album by album, through our favorite bands with no skips, and we listen to everything that they have to offer, and we rank the songs on a scale A, B, C, D, E.
And today we're doing something, a little side project. We're hitting Fort Minor.
Yes, we are. Not a Linkin Park project. It's a Fort Minor project. We decided to include this in our Linkin Park podcast because it is the side project of Mike Shinoda, as we've said, the rapper, guitarist, producer, in fact, as we witnessed last episode, of Linkin Park. And he, at the height of their fame, after they got to meet Jay-Z of all people, he got to have his own solo rap career, essentially.
Yep, he began recording this right after Collision Course, November of 2004. This being Fort Minor, We Major, which is what we're covering today, which is a mixtape, which was the prelude to the album drop for Fort Minor, The Rising Tide.
Yeah, we're going to do Fort Minor, We Major, the mixtape, and we're also going to do the sampler mixtape that came out a few months before that. So he dropped the sampler tape in May of 2005, which had some of the songs from the album. And then he dropped this mixtape in October of 2005, the Fort Minor We Major mixtape. It's kind of the classic idea of a mixtape. You basically do an album for free to promote a second album that you're going to have people pay for. And I think it paid off. I don't really remember this coming out. I do remember the Fort Minor album. Were you even aware of the mixtape at the time?
I was not. This was not a review for me. This may have been a first time listen. I don't recall most of these tracks, although a few of them did end up making the debut album. This project was hosted by DJ Green Lantern, and as we mentioned previously on a previous podcast, was hooked up by Jay-Z after the successful Collision Course collaboration.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's cool that he was like brave enough. You know, he's been like a member of a 6-person squad basically, and now it's like obviously he's talented enough to do this, and because he's the producer, you know what I mean? So it's like it's just cool that he's like, yeah, we're gonna give it a shot, and that it's cool that they could even write that much music. Frankly, yeah, I wonder if it maybe was Jay-Z's idea or his idea for him to kind of have a solo rap career. It's cool that Jay-Z was the executive producer on the album. I'm sure Jay-Z was also kind of the bridge to a lot of the guest stars that show up on this mixtape here.
For sure, yeah. Mike did write and produce most of this album. Write and play the instruments for a lot of this album, I should say. We'll see a lot of samples and guest stars as well. DJ Green Lantern was the mixer, producer, and presenter, so we'll hear a lot of parts that he was in as well.
Yeah, DJ Green Lantern also has a tape in a more modern day, probably 5 years ago now, probably around 2012 or something. But he works with Eminem, basically, is what I'm trying to say. They've done mixtapes together. DJ Green Lantern's dope.
Yeah, he was still relatively young at this time, I believe. He's still in his 40s now, so he was still young at the time that this came out. Record producer from New York, signed by Eminem originally in the early 2000s, so that was where he got
Incredible. Yeah, there's nobody bigger than that.
Yep, so this is right when he was first starting to take off.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about what Fort Minor is as a concept, and then we'll jump into the actual mixtape itself. So it's confusing because it's like, is Fort Minor a band, or is it is it his rapper name, like the way like Eminem is Marshall Mathers' rapper name? Or is it like the name of the project? I never understood as a kid. It was always confusing. But I've got a quote. Shinoda actually said this in 2020. So it was confusing for 15 years. So he says, I'm Fort Minor the way that Trent Reznor is 9 Inch Nails. Like 9 Inch Nails is a group effort, but if Trent doesn't do it, it's not a thing. So, there are 9 Inch Nails records where it's only Trent Reznor. But it is also a project that Trent works on with other people, other collaborators, but it's never going to happen without him. There's tracks where it's only him, and there's no tracks where it's not him, but it is more of a band, of a group effort. And the other, I guess there's like no official members of Fort Minor, but the other two guys that rap on this album a lot.
Yep, Ryan Patrick Megan or Ryu, and oh boy, Takbir Bashir or Tak, part of the underground hip hop group Styles of Beyond.
Styles of Beyond. The
Yep.
other two members are from Styles of Beyond.
And they're the core trio. Those two gentlemen and Mike, and they're the core trio as well on the actual debut album for Fort Minor.
And I think that they're not even necessarily like official members of the group or whatever, but it's like they're on so many songs on the album that I think most people kind of consider them that. I think it's kind of official, unofficial at that point.
Yeah, if they were to drop out, it would still be Mike as the umbrella of Fort Minor. Yeah, I think
it's the three of them.
Yeah,
I think it's understood that that's kind of how the squad roll. I guess Styles of Beyond is a 5-man group, 2 MCs and 3 producers, and it's those 2 MCs that are in Fort Minor. Styles of Beyond was executive produced by Mike Shinoda, right? He kind of co-signed on them and got them a little bit more mainstream hookups.
Yep. So we'll hear Machine Shop shouted out in the mixtape quite a bit, and that is Mike Shinoda's record label that they were co-signed to.
So Jay-Z brought him up. He brought up Styles of Beyond, and it was all made possible by this overflowing talent where Mike Shinoda is even too talented for one band. He's got to have a whole nother. It's so cool that it's like him as a solo rapper, and it's like he can weave in and out and kind of perform and present himself in like different modes like that.
Yeah. Just to be able to switch straight from Linkin Park and all the success they have had to be able to switch hats and be able to play a lot of he was, like I said, heavily involved in playing all the instruments and doing a lot of writing for this album, although there is a lot of samples and a lot of guest features, but he noted that he wanted to be heavily involved in all the writing and the actual playing of the instruments as well. So being heavily involved in this project and the heavy shift from what Linkin Park was doing, even though they were very much a mix, as we've said, of a lot of different genres, just to take on a heavy project like this, from what Linkin Park was working on to the collaboration with Jay-Z and then into this full project. Just doing a lot of different things, a heavy workload, but he's very successful at it.
Yeah, it's cool that we kind of lived through that as well. I remember when he spun off and did the Fort Minor album. As we said, we don't really remember the mixtape, but I think I bought the album, and we accepted it. You know, it made sense. It's like, yep, he's got more stories to tell. He's got this other avenue, and it's like we were happy for it. We were excited for it. Like, it made sense that he's got these other songs that he's gonna bring out. It wasn't like a vanity project or like some of these things where they, you know, it's kind of a cliche where it's like, oh, the front man thinks he's good enough to go do a solo project and like fire the rest of the band. Like, he's got such an ego. It's like a cliche where there's tons of examples of guys that have tried to do that, but it's not what it is. It's more stuff. It's more good stuff.
Well, multiple songs from the debut album and a couple that overlap between the debut album and this mixtape, you know, charted and did quite well. So this is a very pretty successful project. He wasn't, you know, hitting top 10 on lists, but this was a very successful side project.
Yeah. And he basically, Fort Minor only has done a few things here. It's the mixtape and the sampler mixtape that we're covering today. It's the Rising Tide, which is the main album. And then they did one more album, which was like an EP of remixes, which is, I guess, essentially the reanimation for Fort Minor.
Yeah.
But it's really only those 3 records, a mixtape, an album, and a remix album. And he's never really gone back and done another project. And now Mike Shinoda, in the year 2020, after Chester's passing, Mike Shinoda's done several albums as Mike Shinoda and has dropped the Fort Minor name from those projects. So it might have just been a moment in time, but we're gonna go through it and we're gonna relive it all, maybe for the first time. But we're gonna check out the sampler mixtape. It's just called Sampler Mixtape. It's got some of the songs from the album in different versions, technically. But we're going through that because it did drop first. So technically, this is the very first songs you would have heard. And then we're going to do the Fort Minor, We Major official mixtape that they did to promote the album. Next episode, we're doing The Rising Tide, the actual album that I think most people are familiar with. But stick around. There's a lot of great stuff here on these this sampler mixtape and the Fort Minor, We Major mixtape. So we got this sampler mixtape. This is what was handed out to fans. I'm guessing it was probably guys that they met on Linkin Park Underground and stuff like that. We got 5 songs. We got an intro. We got a song from the album, the Rising Tide album. Then they got 2 songs from the mixtape, and then 1 more song from the Rising Tide album. The Rising Tide songs are different versions on this. I'm not sure how different they are. We will see when we do the album. But it's just cool that this was like your very first taste, like the first thing you would have ever heard if you were coming up through the Linkin Park Underground and all that stuff. So what do we think of this? What do you think, Michael? We got the intro, the alternate intro, and the alternate Remember the Name.
Yeah, well, Remember the Name was the first massive hit for Fort Minor, although it didn't actually hit and really chart until the back end of the album's release. It wasn't until, I don't know if it was Petrified, or it wasn't until the second single for the album came out that it really hit big. And Remember the Name was also all over sportscasts. It was all over the place. At the NBA playoffs for 2006 and 2007, the 2008 NBA draft, EA Sports video games, TV shows, movies, UFC 129, just all over the place because it's just such a pump-up song.
It's iconic.
Yeah. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
Yeah, everybody knows that. I think if you've been in a gym since 2005 at any point in time, or like you said, seen almost any sports cast that's been happening, you've heard this. It's almost a meme at this point. I think it is a meme where it's just like it's so cheesy and over the top that they just put this on everything. Like, this is just your pump up to do anything, but it's not cheesy. It works. Like, it is a great song.
Tak and Ryu, the trio delivers some great verses on here. The chorus is killer. We got a nice instrumental, between the strings, although they're not, real, they're machine. This is just a phenomenal track. And to release this as the demo for the mixtape, for the pre-release to the album, like this was it.
This was it. They knew it at the time. They're like, this is the hit. Let's give it to him right now. This is what we're going with. It's got to be his biggest song, or Fort Minor's biggest song, and it's kind of his iconic. If you think of Fort Minor, you really think of this song.
As we're going through Linkin Park's and Mike Shinoda's and all this early stuff, it's kind of amazing how they just didn't strike out. They just had singles and had just right from the get-go. We're always spot on with what they wanted to do and the sound, and whether they're experimenting with something new or blending in a different style or working with another artist or whatever they're doing. They were just really hitting through the 2000s there, right from the get-go.
Yeah, they were always kind of on the biggest stage. Like, they never had to take a back seat. Like, even it was promoted the way everything else was promoted, as far as just being a mainstream thing, where it's like, this is an amazingly done album. Like, they could have struck it out. You're totally right.
And after Remember the Name, the project hits with Dala, Get It, and Petrified. Petrified being another song that ended up making the album. But we'll hit on Dala, Get It, and Petrified as we walk through the actual mixtape release here, because they also made that project as well.
So here we go. Fort Minor, We Major. You've already gotten the sampler a few months earlier from the street team, and now here we go, the real sampler They're the real mixtape of Fort Minor We Major.
So you roll into the mixtape here, which you would have either received from a Fort Minor Street Team person or as a free download. Limited edition was also dropped in 2006 with a little bit different cover art. And you come in with DJ Green Lantern. There we go. I'm getting our DJs mixed up here.
Drama.
And he brings in a number of different mixes in the intro right off the bat. A number of different samples with Mike over the top mentioning his Machine
Shop Records.
There we go. Machine Shop Records, which I don't know that he really mentions that again. But
he shouts it out a lot on that other sampler too.
After this project, I'm not sure that he mentions it again. But yeah, he shouts it out
an
awful lot on the project.
We got a couple samples on there.
Yep. DJ Lantern drops in with the intro, just about a 1.5-minute intro with a number of different samples here.
Yeah, he's just cutting them up. It's like tiny snippets of guys talking. There's definitely some Jay-Z in there. It's funny, they got a Biggie Smalls sample where he says, "Raw nights, I perform like Mike." He's obviously talking about Michael Jackson, but it's funny that it makes it sound like he's talking about Mike Shinoda.
Yeah.
So that's funny. The thing I don't like is Mike does his rhyme, "sick with a Bic pen all up in your man," and is silly, and he says it again on a different song on the same mixtape. Just not a fan of that line in particular. I would not have that's like the first thing he says on the first mixtape, and it's just goofy. I get what he's trying to go for, but would not have started with that line.
Yep. So that line by Biggie is from a Victory. That's what the sample is from there. So yeah, mixing in different things here. We do have Mike shouting out his record here as well.
Telling
record
you to
label.
buy it. Oh,
Yep.
He's shouting out the label.
Label as well. Shouting out a
So
lot
many
of things.
So many things. That's what I thought at the end. At the end of Remember the Name on that sampler we heard.
Yep.
He shouts out Fort Minor, Mike Shinoda. He shouts out the other two guys. I keep forgetting what they're called. I want to call them Souls of Mischief, but that's a completely different hip hop band. It's a completely different hip hop group. What are they called?
Ryu, Ryan's his real name, and Tech.
But what's the band?
Styles of Beyond.
Styles of Beyond,
Yep.
not Souls of Mischief. Check out them, though. Styles of Beyond. He shouts out Styles of Beyond. He shouts out Machine Shop. It's like,
Yep.
It's cool that he went for it, but it's also like, it's hard to imagine the audience being able to keep up with all, like, oh, he's signed to this, and they're under him, and he's under them, and he's a side project of this. But we kind of did. Like, it was all justified. Like, none of it was like them like reaching to try and like just a cash grab on a project. It's like Linkin Park spins off into Fort Minor, spins off into Machine Shop Records, and it all just made sense. And then you got Styles of Beyond in there. Styles of Beyond.
Well, maybe it's been a minute since I've listened to, I guess, what I consider a true mixtape. But mixtapes, EPs, albums, all blended together.
Yeah,
especially now that albums are being sold under mixtape whatever for, so they're all getting blended. But you don't get 50,000 shout outs in a track anymore. So this was certainly an intro of its time.
And I believe the original distinction is like the mixtape is beats and other people's music that you don't necessarily own. It's just songs that you're like proving that you can rap. And then the albums where you really, you pay for a producer and a band and a beat maker, or however you make the beats. It's like the real produced stuff. You're not rapping over like somebody else's record anymore. You're like, you got your own studio, your own producer. It's cool that it's that classical kind of idea of it where it's just a bunch of cut up pieces of other people rapping and other beats from other stuff, just basically putting Mike on, shouting out whatever they need to shout out, and then DJ Green Lantern just puts on the next beat, the next song. It's like, okay, Mike, rap to this. Okay, Mike, rap to this. It's cool that there's stuff that is actually created and produced by Mike. There's Linkin Park stuff on this mixtape, and then there's Green Lantern mixing in, other pieces of music and random other tracks and stuff for Mike to spit over. So it's dope. He's got the real, true, original mixtape style. It's legit.
Yeah, and we have a lot of original music and samples mixed in as well here. It's a good mix and a nice, I guess I wouldn't say nice intro to that. It's just so of its time. Of its time.
That's what I was trying to say. It's of its time, but he nails it. Like, he does what he's supposed to do.
It's a mixtape.
He comes correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the longest we've ever talked about an intro track, so maybe we'll see what that means for the rest of the album.
So though we open with those samples and the mixing, we go right into original music with the second track, 100 Degrees, with just Mike, and it's another pump-up track. The first one on this album, although remember the name, is kind of a pump-up track as well. It is a pump-up track. So this time, just follow me. It's already heated to 100 degrees, so get up.
Get up.
Get up.
Get up.
Get up.
Dude, he got it, dude. It's a party song. You got to have the right hook to lock people in. And he's playing the game, dude. He's playing the game.
We've got some nice kind of synth, which is actually synth keys-ish noise, which is a nice high to fill out the clattering, pulsing, banging. It's just
There's a great bass line. It's like a really good bass on this. I was surprised at how much of it's like a real song almost. It still kind of sounds like a mixtape song, but yeah, between the bass and keys, they got a lot going on here. This is a great song.
Yeah, it's full rounded out album song, and it's like a fist pump. I'm with ya, and I like the little key parts you get in the throughout the chorus in the beginning, the end.
And you can chant to it.
Yeah.
You can chant along with the chorus and just hit the first time you hear it. That's the key. If you can sing along with it the first time you hear it and just have that monotone of just hitting the hook on the beat like that, that's the kind of track you want for a banger, for a pump-up song.
Yeah, so whether this is you would be your first time listening to, Fort Minor, where you got the little 5-track sampler, I think this is a great way to kind of come into the album. You get pumped up off the little, minute and a half intro, and then you roll right into this. I think this is a great start for the album.
I'm glad he did it by himself too. He doesn't throw the mic over to any guest vocalists. He just holds the whole track together, and he does a great job. He's got some really good 2-syllable rhymes on there. He rhymes program with slow jam. That's pretty good. He's doing those interlocking 2 syllables. It's good stuff. He rolls, he rocks, he fills in all the gaps. It's like that rolling keys. He just rolls over it and fills in all the gaps with his flow. And that's what you want to do, man. He fills the space, he fills the bars, and it's a good track. He really shows off on this.
Yeah. So we didn't rate the intro track, but it's an intro track. This is like a solid B for me, track wise.
I'll give it a B+. I think it holds together as a song. I didn't think it had to. It could have just been a couple bars and then cut to another sample, but I'll give it a B+.
Yeah, that's solid.
And then after that pump up jam of track number 2 with 100 Degrees, you got Dala, which is a Led Zeppelin sample. It's awesome. It's Ocean by Led Zeppelin, and they rap over it. It's great.
Yeah. Like many songs on this, this is the first big one with the sample brought in, and very enjoyable. I think they brought it in, and it works out well.
But it's just Led Zeppelin. It's chopped. It's a specific DJ cut of it that I guess Green Lantern is controlling, which is dope. It's just what mixtapes were. They would take a riff or a 4-bar pattern from a record that already existed. A lot of times the rappers didn't even know, the actual rock song that they were ripping from. They just know the DJ cut version of it that was circulated around on cassette tapes. You have just people recording themselves on boom boxes or whatever they had, whatever mic would just plug straight into the boom box or however they needed to get it done. But this is that kind of old school, the original mixtape where they're taking classic rock riffs that they would never be able to get the rights to and just cutting it, making a 4-bar loop out of it, either live with an actual record or however you got to do it, just proving you can rap, just putting bars over those things, and then that's the song. It's not really a song it's because it's not like a studio song, but that's a mixtape song, and it's great. They do a good job.
And I don't know, there's no chorus. It's just Mike,
just bars.
Yeah, it's just Mike, Ryu, and Tack. So it's the trio.
You got I'll never remember what they're called. My mind says the other one.
Yeah. Well, it's the trio from beginning to end.
Styles of Beyond.
Yeah.
You got Styles of Beyond in there.
Yep. So no traditional song structure, just 3 verses, more like a freestyle.
Yeah, you don't need a chorus.
Yeah,
You just need
pretty
bars.
much.
Just rap. That's
Yep.
what we want. And it makes sense for him to bring Styles of Beyond in on the second song on here, get them going, bring them up now that he's kind of established on track 1. And then they do just the old school banger.
So Dala, I'd give maybe a C. It was fine. It's there.
I'll give it a C. It's not really a song. It's just like a mixtape song. It's fine. It's cool. They do it. They nail it. C.
Well, we roll right from Dala into Block Party. A nice transition right into Block Party. We have Apathy on here, and it's only a 2-minute 40-second track. We roll right into Apathy, who is part of the Demigods hip hop collective from the early 1990s to present, apparently, which I didn't realize, but they are apparently still around and kicking. And it's another freestyle track, but the sample on this one works a lot better.
Yeah, they chop it up a little bit more. I think they add some drums to it too, but it's Banquet by Block Party. They do a little more production on it as opposed to just ripping just a 4-bar thing out of a different record. Yeah, kind of more freestyles. We got Apathy, Shinoda, and Tack trading back and forth.
I do like it's the last, both of these are kind of aggressive lyrical tracks, lyrical freestyles. I guess there's not really a cupcake freestyle. You're not, but they're violent freestyles, which is fine. I like the aggressiveness, and I actually kind of like it with the more mellow, sample. I don't know. It seems to work out really well. I like it a lot. I like Apathy on the to start this off, and I really like the verses. I think Mike does a pretty good job. I like this track. I think this is a solid B for me.
I guess I gotta give it a C+. It's pretty cool. I like you were saying, like the kind of almost the violent imagery that they're going with. Obviously Eminem was huge at the time. He's always talking about killing people. Mike doesn't go full on to being like a serial killer goofball, but he is talking about like beating you up with his words type of stuff, where it's like, which a lot of rappers do that. It's a cool way to brag, where it's just like, hey, I don't have to pull punches because I can just like hit you with a word that'll blow your mind. But it's a lot of that. I don't have any particular lines to bring up, but it's a lot of that type of thing where he's like, I'm gonna beat you up with my rhymes. I'm gonna like.
Yeah, we have a Sopranos reference from Apathy, which was big at the time. Still big, I guess, even though it's way past its prime going into 2020, but now that's the mindset.
I guess my point I was trying to say, it comes off a little like he's making stuff up, like it's a little, like I know he's tough and I know he is what he is, like but it's cool, but it is kind of cliche. It's kind of cliche, but he pulls it off. He performs it good. It's a C+.
Yeah, we get a fair amount of cliche in here that's a little. You're like, Mike of Linkin Park, this is a little...
You got to
especially
brag,
Mike.
But...
Yeah. You're like, I don't know if this quite fits your profile, dude, so...
It's a little cheesy. A little. Not a lot. And most of it's legit.
So we roll into SCOM after that with our good old Ryu from Styles, and Jules Santana, part of the Dipset clique that was coming up at that time, and Self-Titled as well. So they all have verses on this track. Jules Santana, part of the Dipset group that was coming up in New York there. He was just starting to hit it big. He was part of the group there with Jim Jones and We Fly High. His second album came out later in that year, so he had one project out at this time, so he was probably not quite a big get yet to some of the other big names on this project, but he was affiliated with a big group at that time. Self-Titled was more of an established artist at that time, so he was more of the big name on this project. The sample is not bad.
Yeah, this time they do Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses, one of my all-time favorite bands. They do a little bit more production on it's not just a straight rip of the original. They do some drums and some stuff. It's kind of annoying. I don't know why. I don't really like the vibe that it all comes together on for some reason. I think I'll give the song a D for that reason. It's like annoying, trappy, just super syncopated drums. It just feels kind of forced.
I'm not sure that all the verses quite go together. Joel Santana's verse doesn't quite fit in with everyone else's. It's close. It's close to a really good song, I think. The sample it does get annoying. It's just not quite there. This would, I don't know, a C. If you listen to 2 minutes, if you listen to half of it, it's better.
Apparently, this was the first single. They released 4 singles from the Fort Minor We Major mixtape. And the song we're talking about, SCOM, which, do we know what it stands for? Oh, Sweet Child of Mine. Duh. It stands for Sweet Child of Mine. But that was the first single they released from this. I think that's kind of weird. The other singles were Dollar, Get It, which those were the ones from the sampler too, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And then Spray Paint and Ink Pens, which is coming up soon, which is one of my favorites on here. But before that song is the next song, the Funkadelic remix of Remember the Name. So aren't you glad that we talked about the original Remember the Name?
Yeah, well, we talked about how in some of the Linkin Park's projects, they had originally written some of the stuff in a funky tone and decided to pull some various pieces out of that. So they've always had shades of that in the back of their mind for some of their pieces. So.
And they just got to do an endless remix. It's like a remix of a single from an album that hasn't come out yet at this point in time. It's like, it feels like they were so sure that would be a hit, where it's like, here's the sequel to the hit to the movie you've never even seen yet. Like,
just playing around with something different.
Yeah, it's like, but I mean, that just shows how confident they were that it's like, this is the sound, this is the song.
Now, this variation wouldn't have made any sporting event commercials or advertisements or anything like that, or video games for years to come. Mm-hmm. But it's a nice, it's got a nice vibe. And it's literally Remember the Name with just a mellow vibe to it.
It's Music for My Mother by Funkadelic, and it's just another one of them remix mixtape song. You just grab 4 bars of a different song and freestyle over it, and that's a new song. It's cool. They must have had it. It's like what they did with Collision Course, obviously, but it's like they knew that it fit. They had an idea in mind where he just lines up Remember the Name. Pretty sure all the verses are exactly the same.
Yep.
But they just happen to also fit this random Funkadelic song. Perfect.
Yeah. There's just a C for me. That's fine. It's whatever.
I'm going to keep handing out D's.
Okay.
It's cool, but it's just, whatever.
Yeah. So Bleach with an awesome Jimi Hendrix sample is the next track on the tape. And this one works out better than most of them. This is probably one of the standout tracks on the album.
Yeah, the way they mix the drum machine with the Jimi Hendrix sample is awesome. It rocks.
So we leave Mike out of this one. Just the styles of Beyond, Gentleman, Tak, and Ryu are the 2 switching verses back and forth.
So how's that for a mixtape? He ain't even on this one.
Yeah, and it seems to really, it flows wonderfully. Their flows are wonderful, and switching off back and forth.
It's on point.
Yeah.
They fill the space.
And lyrically, it seems to fit in the theme with the original Jimi Hendrix concept behind the song.
Yeah, he's going down to shoot his old lady. And they mix it with that Sopranos sample as well, and then it just all kind of fits with that kind of a storyline, basically.
Yeah, well, while the blood keeps gushing relish and pink mustard, I'm slamming till I hear it to bits, till the bell for the recess rang on the defense game. You feel all like P.F. Chang's. So, don't get all of that, but, hopscotch on the corpse till I drop the torch.
It's a little made up. They're reaching. You know what I mean? It's like when you're reaching, Eminem does it a lot. Everyone does it a lot, but it's like where you're just talking about nothing. Where it's like, what does that even mean? It's not something that really happened, but it's okay. You can reach a little bit.
It's just we intro with a snippet from The Sopranos, and we have the title Bleach, and just the lyrics and the flow back and forth with the lyrical content that fits perfectly in with the original subject matter of the sample. This is just a wonderful piece. It's great to listen to. This is like an A for me.
I'm going to give it a B. I don't think I can give an A to just a chopped up sample song in comparison. But yeah, they did a lot with this, and the beat is awesome. I can't get. I mean, maybe if Mike was there, I'd give it an A. I don't know. Maybe it would feel like a full song at that point. But it's cool, man. Styles of Beyond is really showing off, and that is a really cool kind of mashup. And I like when it all has a concept like that, and they pull it off. So I'll give it a straight B.
Yeah, and we're really hitting the juice here in the middle of the album. We follow it up with Spray Paint and Ink Pens, which has Ghostface Killah and Lupe Fiasco, and Petrified, which is a Doors remix.
Yeah, they do Strange Days by the Doors on that one. And then after that, they got Get It, which, is that another Styles of Beyond song?
Yep.
Is it just them again, or is it Mike?
I'm not entirely certain, but it was on the original sampler.
Oh, so it must be him. Spray Paint and Ink Pens is awesome.
It's probably the best song on the album.
It sounds like a real song.
We roll through Ghostface Killah, Lupe Fiasco, and Mike Shinoda on here, each telling 3 different stories with their verses. Ghostface Killah describing, young boy dealing with the older fellas in the streets, living a street life. Mike Shinoda talking about a gentleman, making it by with a wife that's passed away more or less, and Lupe Fiasco describing a space adventure.
Yeah, what the heck? He gets into all kinds of stuff. Like straight up, he's saying like laser cannons, systems jammed, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but we just have 3 well descriptive verses with 3 separate little stories tied with this great refrain. Spray paint and ink pens. I used to write in every color I think in, to paint a picture with every rhyme that I speak in. Yeah, the gallery is the beat then.
And then they go, tss, 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 tss. So it's a theme song. They're like spray painting. I love it. Like they've got the whole concept. It's a concept song where they're reaching a little bit where it's like metaphors on top of metaphors, but it's like, oh, our words is the paint on the canvas. We've made that metaphor before. It's cool that they go all the way with it to where he's like actually doing the mic technique where it sounds like a spray paint can, where it's like their words is the paint, is the you get it. It's not deep. It's just cool. It's just, and the atmosphere of the sample and the hook is great, dude. It reminds me of like a lot more modern kind of like, they even say like lullaby core about music, like certain types of like that kind of synths and samples where you put it more with like harder drums. It's kind of got that type of sound to it, a more modern 2020 kind of production almost.
Yeah, so just excellent production all the way around, excellent writing, and to be able to get a couple of big names on this just,
and they've got the verses in the right order. Lupe blows them both out of the water, and I don't know, Ghostface Killah's verse is, I think, kind of the weakest one on there. It's good, but they have them right. Save the best for last, as always. And, they're reaching Ghostface Killah says, I verbally paint pictures. Like, that's the kind of stuff. It's like, it's cool. It's a little cheesy. Like, that's the whole point of the song, is they're making those types of metaphors. You got to know when to rein it in, when to talk about something real instead of just metaphors on top of metaphors. But they ride that line, and it is that kind of a song. It was the era for that kind of. I guess I'm looking back on it and criticizing just how cheesy some of that stuff got. It's a good song. I'll give it an A.
I give it an A as well.
Okay, we heard Petrified. I thought this was a good song. I might have been mixing it up with a different song, but the more we've been thinking about Petrified here, it's a corny song.
Petrified, as we remember it, and it came out in the album, is great.
Different.
And this with let's talk about how this one's a little different first. It's got the Doors sample on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what track is this? I know you're a little better with the.
It's Strange Days by the Doors.
So this isn't my favorite version of Petrified, although I do like the song Petrified quite a bit. It was one of their singles off of all their projects, and it's one that a lot of folks remember. But this is not my favorite writing by Mike ever. This is, the first verse is, how y'all doing? My name's Mike. I'm fluent with this new. I'm doing it all night. I like what I do. I do what I like. I can quit. and get it back like I'm riding a bike.
Okay, that's like Dr. Seuss.
Like, stop, bring it back, bring it back. We got that balance. Keep us on track.
He was riding the line and trying not to get too corny with it, but I think he fell off that bike a little bit.
I think it's garbage. I can't stand it. I think it's awful. I think it's awful writing. I think that's just horrible. If you set anyone down or like, hey, can you write a verse? I think that you wouldn't be too far off from something like that.
I do
honestly.
what I like.
I think it's
I like
horrible.
what I do. I want to live in a shoe. It's that bad.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with stating your name at the beginning of a verse or doing some, I don't want to say simple lyrically because sometimes stuff, it can be simple, but I don't know. This isn't it. I don't like this at all. It's just so simple to me. Even using arranging different lines or adjectives or just something to make it other than like a first grade writing level, reading level, basic. I don't know. Hey, can you sit down and write me a song? Yes. Verse 1 of Billboard Top 200 hit. Here you go. This is ridiculous to me. And the fact that it made every Fort Minor project to me is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it made it. Yeah, it's on all three. It's sampler, mixtape, album. Is it this dumb on the album?
Yes.
I was thinking of something else. There was a different song I like. I guess it's not this one. It's on this twice. The track 9.
Yeah, the original mix is on the back end of this as we get there. We discuss the tracks in order as best we can on the podcast, but we got a long album here, and so yeah. Well, I mean,
we're gonna do Petrified again and roast it again.
Well, I mean, we can touch on it now. It's on the album twice.
Now drop that. Come on, drop that. Come on.
Yeah.
That part's good.
So
I like that.
The original version is good. The verse is good. Now, why is everybody so petrified?
What?
Petrified.
What?
Step aside and drop that. Drop that.
Oh, come on.
Drop that.
But then it's just crap. Let's just make our own. Just cut out the verse and have like a 2-year-old write something else.
I mean, it's fine. And here's
It's
one of the
fine.
hooks. You really must be so lonely, puffed up like you're so tough but so phony. You and your boys, you don't know me. Okay. You really want to hold me? Show me, homie.
That's where he's reaching. Like, it's got to be based in an... You can reach a little bit, but it's got to be based in stuff that really happened to you.
I just think you could say that. Well, especially on the remix version, it doesn't work. On the version that, was released on the album that folks know, I think it works a lot better. I give that song like a B. This version with the Doors, the sample makes it sound a little spacey. It's kind of cool. It's still like a C+ song for me. But the writing is just atrocious if you're actually listening
He
to
also
the song.
says, I got a friction addiction.
Just
That's lyrical, miracle, spiritual goofball.
We were just Googling words that rhyme here.
I got a friction addiction. It's an affliction. It's getting me sick, and that's what I've been wishing. Like, it's that dumb. I just did that. Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's got to mean something that really happened at a certain point. Like, you can do metaphors, you can do some stuff, but
and it
ain't this though.
And it can be simple writing, right? If it's
it can be
on
simple.
rhythm
it should
and
be
it's
simple.
just but I don't know.
The Petrified is dope. That part. Man, this just had us cracking up. I didn't think it would be this much of a thing. When we got to this point in the album, we just lost it. So I'm just gonna give him an F. I don't care. Like, I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. But just because there's 2 of them on here, and I get that it's a party song. I know that he's doing like old school MC, like Top of the Dome, like people in the back, people in the front. Now clap your hands. Like, I get that he's going for that. It just doesn't. I don't know. Maybe I'll like it more when we hear it again. But D+. I changed my mind.
Okay.
What do you want to say about it? What rank? We go from an A to a D+.
This is just whatever I said. I don't remember what I said. C. I don't know. It's dropping. It's dropping as I think about it now.
See, I gave it. All right.
Whatever you think it should be, please put it at least a full grade lower.
Please comment below.
And if you gave it a D,
do you like Petrified?
F or F?
Maybe we're wrong. I don't know. Let's move on.
Okay.
So after that goofball song, we got Get It.
Yep, which is originally released on the 5-song sampler. Solid. We got the trio here.
Sounds like some kind of Middle Eastern music or something. It's like a really repetitive. I think it's a guitar, but it sounds more like some kind of a sitar or something, and just really kind of trancy music. It's cool.
Yeah, it works pretty well with the verses and the delivery and the flow that they have on here. Nothing particularly special on the verses that are delivered, but it's got a nice little wave to it, little bump to it. It's a solid little piece.
Solid C minus.
I'll give it a C plus.
Yeah, C minus, C plus. It's a little more involved, but there's not that much going on.
No, and it's an original piece that made sampler mixtape, but did not make the album, and it's one of the few in this project.
Then we got Be Somebody. It's kind of got that cha 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 like that kind of rhythm. Kind of repetitive, kind of cool, kind of mixing it up. Everything else has been like super boom bap style rhythm. This is more kind of that Latin rhythm. It's pretty of its time production, I would say.
Yeah, so it's another slightly different tone per se, sort of like the track that comes before it. Trying a few different tones here on the mixtape, I guess. Nothing stand out.
Yeah, it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
C minus.
It's a C. I mean, I would listen to it if it came on my playlist.
After that song, there's Respect for Grandma. Respect for Grandma is awesome. I guess it's a Miracles sample. It works. That's my favorite kind of hip hop. Like that, when it's that type of tones going on, it just I love the sound of it, man. I love the boom bap on that kind of a sample. It just works. It's crispy.
I thought you were going to say tracks that respect grandmothers, but yeah, this is a good little bounce. We've got Self-Titled in it, making a second appearance. And we do
Styles
have
of Beyond all over the place.
Yep. We did a Lupe Fiasco and Skylar Grey were in Be Somebody, the previous track, which again was rather forgetful, unfortunately. Yeah, the reappearance of Self-Titled here is a much better track in kind of this chill, heading towards the back of the album group of songs we got here.
I'll give it a B plus.
It's about a B for me. It's got some kind of fun bars, although not over the top crazy, but there's some fun lyrics in here. We give it a listen.
There They Go is a great song.
Number of different samples in here. It's credited as the There We Go Green Lantern remix. We have a number of different songs in here, and then verses from other songs as well. We have Stay Fly from 3-6 Mafia. We have Encore from Jay-Z, who had to have recorded a new verse for this because he mentions Fort Minor in the verse.
Oh, wow.
And there are just a few lyrical pieces. I didn't go back and dig the whole thing up, but he's got to have a re-recorded piece in here. And, of course, he was the executive producer for the actual album that came out. And then Is That Your Chick by Memphis Bleak. And then he references Hypnotize, Mike does lyrically by Biggie, of course. Although some of his own lyrics, some of his own writing, as we switch from sample to sample, is, again, kind of lazy and forgettable. But this is overall, switching from sample to sample, and the mixing that's going on is actually a great track.
Musically, it reminds me of the Space Jam soundtrack. It's just that type of energy. You could hear this at a basketball game or something like that.
Yes.
The hook lands. It's great. It's not cheesy. It's simple, but it tracks. It lands. It's good stuff. That's a really good song. This is probably my favorite song on here, so I'll give it an A.
It's a B plus for me. The next track, All Night, brings us back Apathy and Self-Titled, and we bring in Tack as well from the Fort Minor trio here.
And no mic.
Yeah, we're just switching off freestyle verses from Apathy to Tack to Self-Titled.
This time it's Tom Sawyer by Rush. It works. It's cool to have that get rapped over.
Yeah, I like Apathy. I like his aggressive style. I kind of like his voice over this kind of, I guess, the pace and the it's a different sample, but it's doesn't feel like it's too far off from the couple of the previous tracks he's been on before with the speed and kind of the cadence, and it's just actually not, I don't think it's too different than some of the other tracks on here, all things considered.
Yeah, we're getting into the high teens of track numbers, so it's a little bit of a retread at this point, probably, especially without Mike on there, but You got to do the crew. You got to let all the crew get a verse or whatever, but I don't know. Put Mike back on, please. Oh, yeah, so I'll give it a D. A C. For Rush, I'll give him a C.
This is a C minus. This is a D. This is not. I'm not listening to this again.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'm listening to it again. So you got Nobody's Listening, which was my favorite song on Meteora. This is kind of goofy. It's just, I think it's the Strokes, a sample of them. Just kind of the normal, like we've been saying, classic mixtape thing where they just loop a classic rock riff ad infinitum and freestyle over it. Only this time it's not a freestyle. It's just they took the vocals from Nobody's Listening.
And nobody is.
Yeah, D.
Yeah, D. So finally, as we head towards the back end of the album, we had some of the better tracks at the front, then we hit a huge chunk towards the middle and back end, which were a lot of the freestyles. And even though they're different samples and moving different artists in and out, a lot of the similar tempo, similar speed, similar cadence, and just swapping guys in and out in the freestyle. So not a whole lot of difference there. But towards the end here, we have Remember the Name, Petrified, in the outro.
They're the album versions of Remember the Name and Petrified this time.
Yep. So if you heard the mixtape or this piece here, then you've heard the album versions. But this is a nice end cap to the freestyle. So a nice way to wrap up the project.
Yeah, kind of brings you into more of the studio quality songs and just kind of shows you what you're going to be getting when you go out there and purchase that album that they've been building up for so long. So long that they did a whole nother album for you for free. That's about it. You got the outro there, and then, I guess there's a bonus track, Where'd You Go? The SOB remix of Where'd You Go? But what the heck? Where'd You Go? That was the hit from the album. So we're doing the remix before we do the original. It must have been put on as a bonus track afterwards when the mixtape was actually released.
Yeah, trying to track this stuff gets a little crazy 15 years after the fact.
So it's pretty similar, actually. Where'd You Go? I don't really remember yet what the original is exactly, but this is pretty similar. It's kind of just the same vibe, at least. But this is his most successful song, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, yep. And this is a not a spectacular remix.
Yeah.
But it was one of the original version was one of the 3 or 4 singles that Fort Minor put out.
From the Rising Tide album.
From the Rising Tide album.
And this was the highest charting one, even higher than Remember the Name.
Yep, so.
But this is not the one. I mean, people remember this. Not this version, but I don't know. Remember the Name to me is really his biggest. This is a lot more chill. I do think it's a cool song. The hook is obviously great. The girl singing is really good. Who sings that?
It is Skylar Grey, everyone's favorite female vocalist that pops up on Eminem, on Linkin Park, just here and there on different projects. She's still only in her early 30s, so I would have put her at less than 20. Under 20 years old when this came out.
Oh, I was confused. I was about to argue with you. It's credited as Holly Brooke. That's her real name. I didn't put it together. Dude, I love Skylar Grey. I think she's one of the best like hip hop diva vocalists where it's like she's one of those artists where they just cut a ton of hooks and then sell them to artists to like build a song around, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. She's great. I love her as kind of Eminem's. She's like basically Eminem's alter ego on most of those songs. It's like she's singing the part that is still coming from him. So it's like she's just great, dude. Like I always think of her that way, or
the voice in someone's head.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a nice end cap to the project, which is really doesn't have a mixtape feel for about half the project. When you include a lot of original music in there, then you're mixing in freestyles and samples about half the time. Green Lantern, known for hosting and being a big part of these projects, and really is in the intro, and pops up a couple other places, but just really doesn't all fit together as a mixtape project. I don't know. Overall as a project, it's got a couple of standout tracks. I do like 100 Degrees. I do like Spray Paint and Ink Pens with Lupe Fiasco.
Yeah, that was awesome. And There They Go was awesome.
There They Go. Overall, just not a terribly exciting.
They do have those
piece.
gems in there, though. It could have just been all filler, no killer. There were some killers, couple killers.
It could also have been another 5-track flyer as well.
There could have been another handout, yeah.
But no, I think it did a good job of bringing a few different artists in to work with Mike and the Fort Minor group, and it helped really solidify the album that's to come. I don't know, just the project as a whole is just not something that I'm playing very often, other than a couple songs that I can pull up. Just not a very exciting project to me. At the time, in the space, as a free project, very exciting. And, you almost don't need to purchase the album if you have this.
Yeah, we'll see. How many other good songs are on there? There's quite a few overlaps.
There are quite a few overlaps. There are a couple big songs on the High Tide album.
Like, what are we really missing?
Here. There is the original version of Where'd You Go?
Right.
Which also had a music video. There were music videos for Petrified, I remember the name as well. And Believe Me and Welcome also had music videos as well. Kenji was also a big song of the album as well.
So we'll get to those. There is some stuff left. But yeah, they did kind of, it'd be different if he had more than one album after this. But yeah, they do kind of pack on the hits there at the end.
So if you were a kid trying to figure out what albums you were going to purchase, and you had the free mixtape, and you had half the singles on the mixtape, then, maybe that's the, 13, 14 on clearance, $10 CD
16
you didn't. Yeah, whatever.
Was the industry.
Yeah. However, if you were illegally downloading, which I don't advise, then, no different story. But
you can still stream it. The OG.
Yeah. Just stream it now. Just do that. Pay for your streaming services or however you stream.
So that was our review of the Fort Minor mixtapes. We learned a lot today. We had our ups, we had our downs. We covered a lot of music here. I'm still excited for the Rising Tide. That'll be our next episode. We are going to check that out for sure. Go through the songs. Thank you for hanging out with us on this little sidestep Fort Minor side project episode of our No Skips deep dive into Linkin Park's discography.
We'll listen with you later.
Yeah, we'll listen with you later.